Hi everyone. Can you guys hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. So it's a great pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar. My name is Amklara Tujayo, and I'm so happy to be here today and to welcome you guys here. So today's conversation themed power, access, and longevity, redefining women's leadership in African fintech, speaks to a very critical moment in our ecosystem, where women are not just participating, but actively shaping the future of finance across the continent. So this conversation is about ownership, feasibility, sustainability, and ensuring that women are not just only included, but we are leading and thriving for the long term. So this is also the art of FinAfrica. So FinAfrica started as an idea like early last year, beginning then last year, July, we began with the concept, with the strategy, the groundwork, and then reaching out to women across the ecosystem. And after months of building quietly and laying the foundation, we launched our first spotlight in November last year. That was from South Africa. And since then, we've gone on to spotlight 10 women across Africa. We've done one from South Africa, from Nigeria, Tunisia, Kenya, Uganda, Cote d'Ivoire, and more. And so far, we've reached thousands of people across Africa and beyond. And just last month, we had 12,000 impressions on LinkedIn alone. So beyond the numbers, what has been most meaningful is the feedback of women from like who now feel visible, they feel heard and seen, and they are so confident in their place within the ecosystem. At Fin Africa, we are also intentional about how we tell our stories through our content series. So we have three types of content series. We have Fina Focus, which basically is just to give a quick spotlight into who you are and what you do as a woman in fintech. And we also have Fina Narratives, where we go deeper to share your journey, your story, and your impact. And we also have Fin Dialogue, is a more of an interview style feature. And starting next week, we'll be launching Fina Insights, where we're going to ask 4 or 5 women the same question. So we collect their responses and we'll share them with the community just to inspire someone out there. So look forward to that. And we also have a number of exciting content ideas in the pipeline, which will be unveiling gradually. So that we won't make you guys overwhelmed. So we'll bring them to you along as we go intentionally. At its core, Fin Africa is about building a platform where women can be seen, where they can be heard and celebrated, not just for where they are right now, but for where they are going. And that's why today's conversation is very important. And to everyone joining us from Africa and around the world, we are truly glad to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over to Binky now.
Okay, yes. Thank you so much for that, Omotola. So now we want to go into the panel session. And to guide this conversation, we're joined by Halima Tuba, whose work sits at the intersection of finance, innovation, and cross-border ecosystem development between Africa and the United States, shaping Africa's fintech ecosystem. Miranda Naidu, founder and CEO of Skill, with deep
I think we have some tech issues with Adebimpe. No worries. I can pick it up from here. Good morning.
Kija, founder.
Adebimpe, can you hear us? Yes, we were having some trouble hearing you. So if you don't mind, I'll take it up.
I can hear you now.
Okay, I'll take it up from here and kick us off with the panel.
Okay.
Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, ladies. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, I should say, for those who are not in my time zone. And welcome to the FinHer Africa International Women's Day conversation. My name is Halima Ba, and I have the privilege of moderating today's discussion among this extraordinary panel of women creating tremendous impact in the African fintech space. As Omotola introduced, today's discussion invites us to really move beyond participation and visibility towards a deeper question. How is power built? How is access granted? And how can women sustain leadership over time within African fintech? And I believe the experiences we have among our three panelists will more than help us answer those questions. As our ecosystem matures, understanding these dynamics become essential, not only for women leaders, but for the future strength and inclusivity of Africa's fintech's financial system. Without further ado, let's meet our panelists. Our first one is Carol Kakuza, founder and executive director at Axiom Zone, a fintech leveraging data, AI, and digital infrastructure to expand financial access for underserved communities, particularly smallholder farmers across Africa. Carol is a fintech innovator, data forensic scientist, and a leading voice on digital financial inclusion for underserved communities across Africa. Her work sits at the intersection of technology, financial access, and economic empowerment, with expertise spanning big data, AI-driven credit system, mobile technologies, and agricultural finance. Welcome to the panel, Carol.
Thank you, Halima. Thank you very much. It's a beautiful introduction. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I'm very happy to be here, and I can't wait to dig deeper and discuss tonight's topics. Quite powerful,
Absolutely.
but I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. We're very happy to have you with us. We're also joined by Foluke Alakija, founder and managing director of Maiden Microfinance Bank, a female-focused digitally enabled institution dedicated to expanding access to finance for women-owned businesses, SMEs, and underserved female customers, and dedicated to advancing financial inclusion across the board. With over 4 decades of leadership across banking and board governance, Foluke brings deep insight into institutional leadership and inclusive finance, and offers valuable perspectives on leadership, innovation, and building more inclusive financial systems across Africa. Foluke, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Halima. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Last but not least, joining us as well is Miranda Naidu, founder and CEO of Scale, working at the heart of Africa's payment ecosystem to help fintechs expand across markets through partnerships and strategic relationships that unlock real growth. Her experience spans leadership roles at Visa, Paymentology, and Tutuka. Beyond strategy and execution, Miranda brings a rare cultural fluency that transcends borders and boardrooms, enabling collaboration across Africa's diverse and rapidly evolving fintech market. Welcome, Miranda. Thank you for joining us on this panel.
Thank you very much. And hey, everybody, very excited to have this conversation. And happy
Absolutely.
International Women's Month.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want us to start us off with a fun one, a really quick one. Before you leave the house every day, right, on a normal work day or any other one, what is one thing that you do not leave your house without? Obviously, your phone doesn't count. It could be a piece of jewelry, it could be a tech item, whatever it is that, Miranda, Carol, or Foluki, you always have it on you. And I'll let you start, Miranda.
This is such a great question. So, a sachet of coffee. I have coffee in the morning, but I buy these coffee sachets that I put in my bag, whether it's my handbag, my gym bag, my work bag, even in travel suitcases. I never move without a sachet of coffee on me.
I love it. I love it. Caffeine on the go, ready to
Caffeine
party.
on the go.
That's it. Awesome. Carol?
Well, I have got too much adrenaline. I've been moved off coffee, but ever since I stopped the childbearing age, I sneak in a cup once in a while. But one thing I never leave the house without is a bottle of water.
Mm.
Water. That's I have to learn to take water. So that's one thing that I'm trying to learn.
That's great.
Water. Yeah.
Okay. Advice for everyone: stay hydrated. Stay hydrated.
Hydrated.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Foluke?
Okay, I never leave my house without my handbag, which contains everything anyway, whether it's coffee, whether it's water, whether it's my phone.
Yeah.
Yes, so I never leave without a bag,
Yes.
no matter how big or small it is.
I bet that bag will help you survive on an island on your own. I
Oh,
think that's
yes.
how well you know how to pack our bags. Thank you very much, ladies, for those answers. Africa's fintech and digital finance ecosystem really continues to expand, as we can all see. And this is driving financial inclusion, innovation, and economic growth. Despite this progress, women remain underrepresented in positions of power, influence, and decision-making across the ecosystem. While women are increasingly visible as founders, operators, regulators, and professionals, or ecosystem builders, like I like to pride myself, some structural barriers still persist. These barriers are less about competence or ambition and more about how credibility is recognized, how access is granted, and how leadership can be sustained within these still male-dominated and relationship-driven fintech environments. I wanted us to keep those words in mind as we kick off the conversation. We decided to frame it across the three buckets of power, access, and longevity. Let's begin with power, right? Not titles, but actual influence and credibility within the fintech ecosystem, and how authority and credibility and influence are actually built and recognized. I'll start us off with Foluke on this one. Across your 40-year leadership journey, how has the definition of power in financial services evolved? And what does real influence look like today compared to earlier in your career?
Okay, so thank you very much. So I started off as a traditional banker. So the bulk of my years in banking, traditional, but a lot has changed since then. And I dare say that I'm also in a country where the regulator, which is the Central Bank of Nigeria, was very deliberate in terms of making sure that there were equal number of women in the banking sector. And of course, that translated also to the fintechs, and not just at the kind of low level or mid management level, but at senior levels. And we had a central bank governor that actually said that there had to be a minimum representation of women on boards of banks. As a result of which now, if you look at the number of banks in Nigeria, with 33 banks, you'll find that quite a number of the managing directors are women, or they're also the chair woman or chairperson of those banks. That's because the regulator in Nigeria was deliberate in making sure that there was female representation. And of course, that has also gone into the fintech sector as there's more digital adoption and evolution in Nigeria. So you have quite a number of women owned fintechs playing in my own side of the country. That's not to say that it's all, you still have the traditional misogyny, those sort of things, kind of woman who heads a fintech, can she perform better or as well as her male contemporary? You still get those, but as we continue to make progress, we find that more and more women are coming into the fintech and technology space in Nigeria. So it's been a long journey, but the point I'm making here is the fact that in our own country, the regulator was very, very instrumental to making sure that there was equal representation at the senior management level and also at the board level of a number of financial institutions so that women are not just seen as women that, would go around looking for deposits from men, so that women are just a position where they make strategic decisions and so it's so far so good, really, I would say, in the Nigerian fintech and financial sector as regards female representation. Obviously, there's room for growth, and we continue to make progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Foluke. This is what we like to hear, that there is actually progress that we're seeing, that we're capturing, and that there was intentionality behind some of these changes in the case that you highlighted from the regulator. To build up on that, I'll switch over to Miranda. So you operate across multiple markets. How would you say power shows up differently between global institutions and emerging fintech ecosystems?
Yeah, I think if I take a step back and just draw a parallel, that builds onto the previous question you asked, I think it's very important, firstly, to understand for ourselves as female leaders, what does power and authority and influence look like for me as an individual? Because it will shift and it will change and it will pivot based on the environments that you're in, the markets that you're in, the business that you're building, your end objective. For me, I believe that true power is building with and beside your community. I'm Christian, and so I try to apply biblical principles to my daily life, career, business. And for me, leadership means servanthood. And so power means the ability to carry the next generation of payment leaders with you. It's to enable communities who are underserved or underbanked in our business, or just need some new level of convenience and access. And when you look to your question, global institutional organizations versus fintech ecosystems, you take a little bit more of an objective perspective. And I'll give an example. When I was working at Visa, I would always get the question, what's the difference between Visa and MasterCard? And my honest answer was, well, we're both payment networks, but it's the difference in who you're engaging with. It's who you're dealing with. It's how that person shows up for you, how that person represents their organization, how the person that you're engaged with goes the extra mile to try and move the needle. And for me, that's true power and that's true influence, right? Of course, if you're a global business and if you're institutional, if you're corporate, if you're ridden with bureaucracy and process, that's not personal. And understanding how to navigate as a leader and as a fintech who thrives on being agile, fast, speed is key and speed is everything, because that's how you get market share, that's how you get funding, how quickly you can bring return to investors. So it's very critically important. But defining that skill set of how having to navigate institutional environments, given the exposure that they can bring through partnership or collaboration, or even serving them as a client, is huge for a business's objectives. As a woman, I would say, particularly in Africa, and as a founder of an early stage business myself, it is extremely difficult. And as a woman, I think knowing and understanding who you are, where your principles are, what your ethical lines are, how you navigate really tough environments where you're trying to move the needle for the business, but you're just moving at such a slow pace that you feel like this is never going to go anywhere. Your resilience, your persistence, those are all attributes and characteristics of true power and strength. And it's the ability to show up as authentically yourself and make a statement as soon as you walk into the room, but still be able to do that 100 times over before you actually achieve what you want. So I know I'm giving you a roundabout answer because I don't think that there is any clear-cut, black and white response to your question. But I think that global businesses are strong and powerful for what they hold, right? Its exposure, its market share, its growth geographically, maybe from a capital perspective, client base, pipeline, visibility. And inside a fintech ecosystem and payment businesses, particularly for early stage businesses, women entrepreneurs, those who are starting out and entering new markets, it's the complete opposite in terms of the way they operate, the way that they work, and the processes that they follow. But true power sits in that collaboration and how those two merge and come together to enable markets and move the needle around community and bringing the next generation of whether it's leaders, whether it's professionals, whether it's business owners, into the fold.
Mhm. Thank you, Miranda. Adaptability is key. Is one of the takeaways that I can highlight here, and adapting to the right context matters. So, Carol, we can chime in on those couple of questions quickly if you want. But I also wanted to direct this one to you. As an innovator introducing new models in the market that you jump into, how do you gain trust and establish credibility when you're challenging traditional systems? And of course, from the perspective of a woman innovator.
Yeah. Thank you, Halima. Like you said, a very challenging innovation that is very new. It's a very new business model trying to ensure that people trust the data. And then secondly, I'm a woman introducing a new idea and a business at that. It is one of the most challenging things, and it doesn't just come into the business environment. It's also family. It's also people who care about you, who ask, are you able to survive with this new model? So because you're a woman, it also comes back to, are you going to be able to handle this innovation, this family, and be able to succeed as a woman? So it is very, very challenging. But I think one of the things that we must learn as women is that building trust has no sex. Building credibility is not attached to the gender of a person. It comes from you as a woman. And being that I'm building trust trees that have to be worked with, different financial institutions are working with the data. I'm working with people that are not seen, and I'm trying to de-risk the biggest population in Africa. That's the 70% that are in agriculture. So trying to build that trust level has nothing to do with the gender. If it was a man who was leading Axiom yesterday, it would still bring in the trust issue. But are doors opened better for them? Maybe. But I think as a woman, one of the things you have to do is to ensure you're credible enough for the innovation that you're building to be trusted. Is it trusted? Has it been tested and it is working? And like Leila said, it is very hard sometimes because it's very slow. You are watching yourself digging deeper into a wider space, and yet you feel like you just moved 2 steps in. It gets very frustrating because you are moving very slow, but your brain is trying to work 1,000 paces ahead. So it is very, very challenging, sometimes frustrating, but that does not discount the fact that as a woman, you have to move ahead. When does power show up? When you build credible services. And the next thing you know, people are talking about what you've done. That is when power shows up. When your name comes up in certain conversations that in other ways would not have come up, that is when power shows up. When you're the only service provider that can prove that financial intelligence is actually functional and can be used for agriculture, can be used to de-risk people who are not seen. So it is very, very important that when you show up to ensure you're trusted, you're credible, and you have access to some of those doors that are closed. So it is very hard, and I know as I say this, some of the women are saying, oh, we've tried and it's not going anywhere. Baby steps sometimes, and it's harder for us. Yeah. But there will always be that person who will trust that credible step that you took. So it will come. And like the lady from Nigeria said, it is interesting that all our countries are opening up for women. I mean, my country, in terms of politics, we have a vice president in Uganda who is a woman. We have a prime minister who is a woman. We have many of the financial institutions have taken on so many women. The question is, how much power do they have?
Yeah.
What is the decision? What does a decision tree look like?
Yeah.
I think that's the question. Where is the power? Are we seeing picture-ready positions, or is there power in the decision making? It is a good thing that we are seeing at the level of Africa many women. We even have women presidents now. But in the financial sector, where is the power?
Where
And
is the
that's the
power?
question. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very nice way to put it. Thank you for those great insights. As we make our way from the power aspect of it into access, right? Power often determines access to capital, to partnership, to decision-making rooms, I think, as you've all alluded to. I start with Miranda on this one. From your experience working across these payment networks and fintech expansions, what actually determines who gain access to capital and strategic partnerships in these African fintech ecosystems? It may be a rhetorical question, but is it primarily performance-driven or relationship-driven?
I think it's both. I think you get in the door through relationship, but you stay in the door and you get appointed based on your credibility, based on your operating model, based on your commercials, based on your products, based on the problems that you're solving. But let's not discount that in Africa, people do business with people. Relationships are extremely important. I think a lot of the time we have many Western views and even European views of these businesses wanting to enter Africa because we're a numbers game. It's like, look at this emerging market, blue field or blue ocean. But it's more than that. We have lives, we have people, we have communities, we have families, that we're trying to grow into these economies through the products and solutions that we offer in the market. And so having that relationship-led view of how to build your network, how to continuously work on that network, how to build authentic relationships at various levels. It's not just, people at the top having a barbecue on the weekend. It is people across all different levels of different types of organizations. Particularly in payments, you'll find today the CEO of the bank is the decision maker at a telco tomorrow, and you're trying to gun for that business, right? So having the relationship network, particularly in Africa, particularly in payments, is very important. That combined with the ability to be culturally fluent, to understand behaviors at different levels in different markets, depending on who you're speaking to, is very important. You cannot be a regional player, a regional leader, and not understand how to change your tone when you're in Zimbabwe versus when you're in Ghana, or when you're in Francophone Africa, how to address the people that you're engaging. It's also relationship driven on the back of that because it's understanding people. But once you get into that door, you have to show up with merit. You have to be an expert on what you are delivering. You have to know it inside and out. You have to field questions. You have to convince the people that you are the best person for the job, the best offering for the job. You provide the best solutions. And here is the reason why. This is the value that you are creating. And these are the problems that you are solving. So I don't think they operate in isolation of each other. Of course, it is Africa at the end of the day. So let's speak bluntly. We do have a lot of brown paper bags. We do have a lot of, corrupt areas that make it very difficult to do business cleanly. But as a leader and as a woman, and building with the rest of, the entrepreneurs and change makers and innovators, etc., it's our responsibility to try and navigate as carefully as we possibly can, but show up based on credibility and trust that you ultimately build through relationship and simply delivering what you say you are going the best way possible.
Very well put. Very well put. Thank you, Miranda. Foluke, I'll direct this one to you. So having operated at executive and board levels, what would you say enables leaders to be invited into policy and decision-making spaces, right? So what signaled credibility to those institutions? Or in other words, what unwritten rules truly govern entry into the right decision-making roles?
Interesting. And I'll just like to add to what the last speaker said about relationship and all that before. And it also dovetails into what my answer to your question. You know, there's something that men do very well that I believe we women also have to emulate, and that's sponsorship. So typically, men use sponsors to get them to certain levels, which is the relationship part of, getting things done. So men have sponsors, and we women more or less still talk about mentorship. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with mentorship, but there's a world of difference between sponsorship and mentorship. So in Africa, and I guess everywhere else in the world, what you find is that to get to certain positions, right, even though you merit it, especially when it comes to board positions or positions where policies have been made, especially in government and all that, you require a sponsor that would say, okay, so this is my person. She's good for it. And then it just opens the door. That, I think, is a very important point, because oftentimes we women don't get ourselves together and form some kind of, like, not necessarily a pressure group, but a group whereby, when they're looking for a woman, not just a woman, someone for a particular role, then we bring our person, which is typically what men do. But then again, apart from sponsorship getting you on boards and policies and all that, it's also about, in my own experience, it's also about the work you've done in the past, your experience, your integrity. Oftentimes, we don't even know who is watching us, right? We don't know. So at times, what I've found is that a lot of my board positions that I've got, and the non-executive positions, are people that I have related with in the past and have said, oh, this lady, I believe that the way I interacted with her whilst we had a transaction or whilst I worked with her, I believe she'd be a good person for this particular role. So as we all know, board positions, right, it's 10% merit, what you know. The balance is politics. The balance is wisdom. How do you work on a table, a board table, or even where policies are being made, and you're less emotional and you're more strategic in your thought making process? These are sort of the traits that people are looking for. People are looking for in women, especially. They're not looking for that angry Black woman who will be on the table and will be disruptive. As I keep telling people, there are different shades of no. You can make your point in a way that everybody would say, oh yeah, actually that makes sense. And you can make your point in such a way that you'll be disruptive. These are all character traits that people are looking for, and they say, okay, fine. I think when we need to have this policy, or we need someone on the board, this lady, or yes, would fit the bill, because it's not just about merit. I mean, like, I'm sorry, I keep going back to Nigeria. I mean, there's so many women here in Nigeria that are overqualified when it comes to education, experience, and all that. But then when it comes to who of all these experienced women get the job, then you look at the softer issues. What can this person do? Is this person a team player? Can this person work effectively with other women or men? Or will this person always play the female card? Because oftentimes when we play that female card, it's used against us by men. So the softer issues come to play when it comes to being nominated or getting there in terms of, how do you get these positions? Softer issues, a lot of wisdom, a lot of making sure that we put ourselves in the right place. That's not to say that, we shouldn't refresh ourselves when it comes to skills. But what's important is that, again, we women have to come together and try and organize ourselves in such a way that we can get ourselves on board positions. Now, having said that, there's a I don't know how to, they're not an organization. It's called Boardroom Africa. I'm sure some of us are aware of it. And what Boardroom Africa does is that it tries to get women. There's so many board positions going on in Africa, and what they try and do is to advertise positions that require female representation on boards. And I think that's a very, very good initiative that, we have these sort of, that are looking out for women that ordinarily wouldn't have been given an opportunity to get board positions or positions where policies are being made.
Yes.
So I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Fuluke. I forgot to mention at the beginning, I hope people have a notebook and a pen, because the jewels that are being dropped in this conversation are incredible. Sponsorship, right? Soft skills, making sure you act the part and you just don't play, as we always fear the woman card, because your credibility truly depends on it. And it's funny how I think across the responses you gave, you answered a question that I didn't explicitly ask, as far as what most women understand about institutional credibility that is often not openly discussed, right? And I think these are the things that we're bringing out on the table here from truly lived experiences. So thank you, ladies, for that. I'll try to move us on to the topic of longevity, right? Gaining power, having access to the right room, the right resources, and so on. But how do you actually sustain yourself into those positions? Leadership is not only about reaching influence, but sustaining it. As the saying goes, what got you here won't get you there necessarily. So once we've settled into those seats of influence, how do we remain in it? Innovation. So for Carol on this one, innovation spaces really move quickly. We know that. So how do you stay grounded while constantly building that future that you aspire to? And how do you manage to sustain the impact that you're creating? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry. You're on mute, Carol. I'll let you unmute. Hold on. Adebimpe or Motola, do you have controls? Are you able to unmute Carol? Okay. So let's see. Miranda, can you unmute yourself? Just trying to make sure it's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think I have
I
unmuted
think
myself.
she's unmuted. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm a bit away from my my
from the machine. No worries at all. No worries. Go ahead, Carol.
Thank you very much, Miranda and Faluke. And Faluke, I have written Boardroom Africa down because I have had an experience with an African board that, had I known, I think I would have done better. So I take that. And to Miranda, I think social capital has gotten me this far. And I'm going to go back and forth to the two last ladies, what they said, because I kept on shaking my head. What has gotten me here, I've worked in all the different positions you can think of, and I have held budgets that today I ask myself, what happened? What was the thinking behind when I would sign $1 million US to an organization? Why is it that I cannot achieve that as fast as I used to sign them out? And it still goes back to what the two ladies have said. I like the sponsorship, the fact that there's somebody out there who can remember the good that you are doing and the authenticity you represent as a person, because you and your organization are graded almost in the same line. I'm so sorry, there's a sound coming from outside. I'm seated at the roadside. So a couple of trucks are passing by. My apologies. So credibility is very, very important, and that's how some of the sponsors choose us. We've had at Axiom, this is going to be our 5th year, and I don't like to count COVID because it was horrible. But having had us move from 2019 to date, and most of what we're doing, because this is a new business model, and staying in this business for so long, I go back to Feluke's sponsorship. A lot of people have seen and proved. Now, how do we stay afloat? Somebody has trusted you. You must make sure you level up. How do you make sure that with the trust they have bought, you can credibly provide a product that is actually credible enough for you to stay afloat and actually keep moving? Like you said, innovation is very fluid. It's very fast. The other thing that I still will pick from Miranda is social capital. I am a Rotarian. And one of the biggest circles that you can ever have is a network of different business people. And because of that, in Rotary, we believe in credibility, the forward test. Your business is rated as you as a woman, of course, you as a Rotarian, and that has also helped a lot. Now, because I am in an area that is very new, financial institutions are saying, how will we be able to validate somebody getting credit who we do not know, who we don't know where the position is? And so what we have done is to ensure, can I listen to the bankers? Can I also listen to the smallholder farmers? Is there a bridge I can build that both people can understand? And in my area of data, that has been the best thing to do. Can I listen to both sides? The financial institutions are saying, well, we cannot lend to somebody who we do not understand. We don't understand their risk. They're too risky. The farmer is saying, you know, I've got 5 acres of land. I think I can get this amount of money. But how do we prove that the value they are communicating verbally without writing is actually what the financial has? And so that bridge is the trust package I come carrying. The fortunate part of it is that I'm a woman, so reproduction has never been a problem. And so producing this at a table full of men, which has happened so many times. I have a client who was my first financial institution, the biggest bank in Uganda, one of the biggest banks in Uganda. And when I entered that room, it had suits all over the place. There was no dress whatsoever. And I remember saying, wow, there's no woman in agriculture in this bank. And the lead said, well, you know, we are in the process of recruiting an agronomist who understands how the finance works. I can never forget his comments. And for the subsequent years, I've kept on saying, until recently, I know that they've recruited some women. But how do I convince this table full of men that this product can work and you have to move along with it? It is an innovation. You're going to be the first bank to use it. And when you use it, your portfolio is going to go up. Today, I boast over 0.05% NPA. And why? Because somebody sponsored me and the social capital worked. I created credibility enough. The third thing I want to talk about, which you asked Halima, is innovation being innovation. Man, there are people thinking every day. There's somebody in a corner somewhere innovating around the same idea you've got. So there's no one idea in the market. What you've got to do is I think we need to do a lot more focusing. If I'm doing data, tomorrow I'm not going to go into Miranda's place and say, hey, you know what? Because I'm doing data, I think I can do payments too. Or because I have all the data, so I think now I'm ready for payments. No. If you focus on something, do that. I have said repeatedly, I've been told, become a payments platform. Instead of doing that, we're expanding to Rwanda, we're expanding to Zambia, Tanzania, because we believe data is something that everybody needs. And the way we handle the data will grow. And Africa one day is going to be one big minefield of data, and we will not have the 10, 15 days of looking out for somebody getting a disbursement in finance because somebody has to visit their home. But you tap into a system, you know what they're worth and what they're supposed to get. Baby steps, yes. Innovation doesn't have baby steps, but you also have to put your thinking cap on. Today I'm talking about intelligence indices attached to farmers, which is what we're doing at Axiom. Somebody goes, how are you doing a farmer bankability index? And I'm saying because of the data. So we have to continue collecting that data. So to sum it up, from Miranda, social capital is great. It's one of those things that will get you into the door. Sponsorship, oh my God, as women, we need that because sometimes nobody looks your way and you keep saying, when will I get my chance? I am skilled, and so many of us are skilled. The third thing is credibility. Can you make sure that when you're given the two positions, the two opportunities, you can now produce a credible product as a woman? And the last part is to ensure that when you're given the three, you do not stop thinking and we hear you have closed tomorrow.
Yes.
That's
a beautiful way to sum it up. Thank you. Thank you, Carol. I'll move on to Miranda on a quick one here. I'm also trying to be mindful of time, but we need to get through these important questions. Expansion across markets is pretty intense, as we all know. How do you think leaders should maintain resilience while scaling fast, right? And what would you say in your case, what strategies have helped you remain in position of influence?
That's a very difficult question because it's a very difficult thing to do, and I'm still trying to do that, right? I think building resilience is an everyday thing. It's like, like Rihanna says, fake it till you make it. That level of persistence, right? I just want to read something quickly for you, which I found very, very interesting. There was a study done in Nigeria with 379 Nigerian women entrepreneurs. The study produced a stat that the spousal support coefficient was 0.563, and that was the strongest predictor of business service delivery in the study. What does that tell us? It means that a woman's likelihood of building a successful business is more correlated with whether her husband supports her than the actual work demands, her own well-being, her family workload. And that reshapes the conversation in terms of like, what support do women leaders and women who build businesses like really need? I think we can't have and I say this quite often, but you can't have the conversation about leadership, business, economic growth, employment creation, upliftment of communities in isolation of the social conversation. Our cultures are different, our backgrounds are different, the way we are perceived at home. There was also a study that showed in some markets, if you don't cook your husband a meal every single night, you are not considered a good mother. So there is a level of load that is put on a woman and a responsibility that she holds. And she is more than capable of delivering in simultaneous functions. But when you talk about resilience and persistence, it is the beauty of a female leader. And on top of all of that, it's also that we give more return per dollar investment than a male counterpart. It is statistically proven, even though we receive way less funding in terms of African fintech specifically. So if I could call it out, and I'll just lead with personal experience. the hardest thing I have ever had to do is build this business. It is extremely difficult. And it takes a great support system at home. It takes people who believe in you. It takes the social capital of authentic relationships around you to give you opportunities to demonstrate value, not throw charitable business your way, but to demonstrate value. And it also takes a level of faith like no other. And I always remember what I said to myself when I started this business is God is going to show through me the business that we build and the people that we bring along this journey, his ultimate glory and what he's really capable of doing. And on a daily basis, I trust that I can only do so much in my own strength, guys. I can only do so much in my own power. There's only so much of talent that I hold, of wisdom that is inside of my own brain, of strategic thinking that I can outperform. And sometimes you have to just surrender that to a higher power and say, you know what, God, you take the wheel and make supernatural things happen for me because my business is God-led and I'm trying to do impactful things. So whether that's one person that I impact or whether it's 1 million people or whether it's 7 million people, whether it's 1 billion people, I don't know. But the resilience that you build happens iteratively in baby steps over every single day that you decide to wake up and keep going and take people with you and pay it forward. So as we're saying, and I love that Puleka called out sponsorship, it's so critical, it's so important. Often, the barrier for growth as a woman is another woman. And so sponsorship is very important. So whilst we talk on a panel and on a forum like this to other women out there about the need for sponsorship, we ourselves hold the responsibility to sponsor others, right? It's very, very key. And when you do that, resilience is built because you've got a strong network around you of people, building you up and empowering you and supporting you, but also teaching you, because resilience is an ongoing learning journey as much as it is a mental, and physical journey.
Thank you, Miranda. That last point you have is my roundup question, so I'll come back to that. I want to round us out on this third component of the conversation with a question to Foluke. Few leaders sustain impact across 4 decades of industry transformation, right? We would like to applaud that. So what would you say has allowed you to remain relevant and effective through those multiple eras of financial services? In other words, what leadership habits have allowed you to sustain impact over a 40-year career that you have with you?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of so many things. One is professionalism. In everything I do, I try as much as possible to be very, very professional, because with that, you get a very, very long way if you do things the right way. 2, integrity. 3 is focus, because oftentimes you find that in our part of the world, people have a full-time job and they also have side hustles and so many other things that distract them. So that focus is also very important. Then, of course, strategic thinking. It's important to look, if you're at leadership levels, you really have to be very, very strategic in your thought process, as opposed to being more operational and more mundane. So strategic thinking is very important. And then, of course, your ability to be able to make everybody work for the same objective, because oftentimes your direct reports or the people that are working with you don't necessarily have the same ability, strength, or skills. So how do you ensure that you all work together and achieve the objectives that have been set? And I'm saying that as likely as possible, but it's difficult, because you find that different people have different ideas and different thoughts. But the best way of being a leader is to say, okay, this is the task or this is the objective that we have to achieve. And you set the example, but at the same time, you help people along to make sure that those objectives are met. So I think to a large extent, a lot of them are things that maybe from my own experience, and of course also networking. Networking is very, very important, and in trying to find to start this bank, I tapped into my network, my social capital, in trying to get the capital, the equity capital for the bank. People just gave me the money and said, "Oh, I trust you. I know you." In fact, someone said, "I know that you'd do well with the money." So the trust is there, and I also tapped into also my relationships in the banking and the financial, the fintech sector to be able to get to where I was. So I didn't kind of like just say I know it all. Network of is very, very important, and the network has to be kept warm at all times to make sure that whenever you need to reach into that network, the network is there waiting for you. So it's a combination of so many things, and many years of building those blocks, and making sure people know that you're a reputable person, and you're someone that can be relied upon, someone that has integrity, someone that says yes and the yes is yes, and someone that you can trust with your money, really, at the end of the day, because we're in a financial sector. Someone who won't run away with it and use it for lifestyle. So I think it's just a combination of all those various factors, and as we say in credit, your character, when we talk about the 5 C's of credit. So just a combination of so many of those things. No shortcuts, and no trying to, get smart over someone else, and, just be professional in everything you do.
A great combination of elements indeed to create that success formula. Thank you Foluke. Omotola, I know, how are we doing on time? I'll take a couple of minutes and sort of round us out, just so we have time to get to the next piece. So this question is your way to close out, but it's also a way to share additional lessons with the group. So at JP Morgan Chase, where I work, our Black leadership has this concept in place that we call sending the elevator back down. And I think each of you sort of touched on it as you were sharing your experiences. So I want you to share, and Miranda pointed this out. Let's make sure we're sponsors to other women as we talk about sponsorships and look for sponsorships ourselves. So how do you personally send the elevator back down to make sure you bring in others along the way, along the journey up with you? Because ultimately, to me, that is one of the best ways we can bring impact. I'll let any of you kick us off, and sort of end on that question.
I don't know if I can go.
Yes, of course.
So part of what we do at Axiom is we have today we have about 3,000 agents, and our model is very simple. We've gone into the communities and recruited young people who have a degree or have not finished school but can use a phone, and these young people are digitally savvy and they can answer. They're part of their communities, and that's how we get our agents that collect the data that we finally use in the different communities, in the different with the different clients. And part of the mandate is to go and select, as part of our 3,000 agents today, I think we have about 54% of those are women. And it's not that we specifically do not want to work with more men, but you find that the ladies will definitely submit their data quite on time, and they'll go out to meet their targets. The men do the same as well, and the young men. But it's always very interesting to see who has stopped the target, who has come in at 200%, And it's amazing to see how many young women want to take on this role. So that's one of the ways that us at Axiom are trying to make sure we push down the elevator so that the next woman is empowered. The other part is also, of course, when you look at your management, who understands that when my twins fall sick, somebody has got to take over and understand that today I'm going to work from a hospital bed and you don't have to judge me. And many times it's when you sit with your management, it's to put out some of these engendered topics, and you say, you know, today I think I'm not going to be able to be in office because one of my children is sick, but I'm going to be able to pick it up when I'm at the hospital and I'll be able to answer the question. Do we give that to any other person within your teams? Those are some of the ways that you pass on the baton and say, you know, as a woman, I'm empowering you to lead and I'll understand when there's a problem. Do we use that as an excuse? No, it shouldn't be used as an excuse. You are still allowed to have 4 children, lead an organization, and empower other women along that. And with our 700,000 households, we have also tried to ensure that households that have women that are being led by women, or groups of farmers that are led by women, many times when you look at the assessment in terms of group dynamics of the different indices and matrices, you will find that you have better run groups, and unless we accept it as women that these groups are run very well, and women leaders can empower different communities, pass it down to the community, especially us who work with different communities, is the only way you can try to empower those that are coming out, because we're not going to live forever. You want to pass down a legacy. You want to ensure that what you've built lives on. And so from Axiom's perspective is we start from our agents to the farmers that we recruit, to the management that we have. How much of the gender card are we talking about? It is not playing the card, but talking about it. How much are we empowering the girl to ensure that she has access, she has the power, and can stay long? And the longevity here comes from you allowing some things. When the baby is sick, allow, because they will definitely have to go and treat their baby. And then they'll come back and make sure that your targets are met. Do we understand this dynamic? Do we understand that this is possible? And when you believe it is possible, I have 4 children. They're all in school and I'm running a very successful business. It is possible. So allow and use the business success, the business stories that you've seen succeed for you to empower the next girl. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Carol. Very inspiring. Miranda, you want to take it on? How do you send the elevator back down?
Yeah, sure. So I think, and to Faleka's point, right? Mentorship, sponsorship is different. Sponsorship carries weight because you're in the room that they're not in. It also carries reputational risk. It carries, political capital. But how to truly send the elevator down is, if you have access to the room, bring somebody into that room. If you are in a forum like this, on the next one, it should be somebody who you should recommend, to Omatola, to say, hey, why don't you focus on this woman? She's a phenomenal leader in Africa and she's doing amazing things, but she goes very unnoticed and her story needs to be told. If you're in a very executive senior position inside of big institutions that carry heavy weight within financial services in Africa, and you're aware of women building other businesses or women employed in other businesses that need an opportunity again to demonstrate value, then make that introduction to the right people. Get them into rooms that you have access to and introduce them into your network so they form part of that network and can therefore build their own relationships with people who are also influential. It is things like giving visibility. If you're, a mega LinkedIn influencer, if you have a huge following on Instagram, if you are a socialite, if you have exposure, into storytelling. Bring the woman along with you. Suggest others to join a podcast, tell their story, give a different perspective, because the beauty about African women is that we're also different and there's so many different lenses, to view situations on. And so those stories need to be told. So if you've got a media platform, a media asset, if you have friends in media, do that, because African stories just overall need to be told. It's building pipelines and not expecting anything in return. So pass business, to fellow women leaders. If you know that, there's a woman that who's building a business, she's starting in her journey, and she has gaps because it's very difficult. And in most cases, you don't know what you don't know. But somebody who's looking out for you, who is trying to create opportunities for you and give you maybe a chance that somebody gave them, at the early stage of their journey, you can take a very objective view and say, hey, I think you've got a small gap here and there's areas for improvement, but here's practical ways in which you can learn, develop, try this course, speak to this woman, go speak to this person who sits in the UK, because they'll give you a different lens, but it's going to build up your skill set so that you can go and pitch to 50 investors in a room, within 3 minutes for a very complex business. So it's practical support that does not expect something in return, right? It's really just giving it forward and being generous with your knowledge, your network, your opportunity, the executive levels that you sit on, your decision-making capital, and rooms that you're in that others deserve to be in as well. And the last thing I'll say is deploy your capital, because businesses need to be stimulated in order for them to grow, in order for them to be sustained, and in order for them to send elevators down. Deploying capital doesn't mean that you need to put a $50,000 check in somebody's business. It means if you have 10,000 kwacha or 20,000 rand and a small business in your community, go and invest in that business and walk the journey with that entrepreneur and support them in building so that they too can pour back into their own economy, create employment, and grow holistically, because I think that's where we need to head to. It's not about the individual woman on the panel and across Africa. It's about us as a collective, not just here, but globally. And I think in order to do that, we need to care about those sitting in all different sizes of businesses, in all different segments and industries, and in all different markets, in very practical ways. And whether you're doing that in your personal capacity, or whether you're doing it through your business or a foundation or a passion project, it doesn't really matter as long as you are doing it in some form or another.
Thank you. Thank you, Miranda. I'll let Foluke take on that question before we end. So Foluke, how do you personally send the elevator back down, or what do you recommend for us to properly send the elevator back down? Oh, you're on mute, Foluke.
To send the elevator back down so that we can bring other people up, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I believe there's so many ways. Again, we have to be intentional, because oftentimes they say women don't help other women, which in some cases it's not true. But it's again about identifying women that you believe can do the job, and then you nominate them for certain positions. In our various organizations, especially if it's a big institution, set up a networking group, a mentoring group, so that women, things that relate to us and things that we believe we need help with, things that we cannot tell our male boss, we can tell ourselves. And I keep saying that I wish I had, I knew the word mentorship when I started banking in 1985, but a lot has happened since then. So I think it's about how we actually put ourselves together as a group. Here in Nigeria, we have two fairly big groups that help women navigate or get up the elevator, which is WIMBIs, that's women in, I'm sure some of you must have heard about WIMBIs. And there's also another one called Whisker, So they are groups that have, professionals, entrepreneurs, and it helps women network. And the trustees or the founders of these groups are women that have achieved, and they also help to bring women that are just coming up the ladder. So I think those are ways that we can, when that elevator comes down, we can bring the elevator down, and we make sure that when it goes up, it's filled with women and not men. Thank you.
Thank you, Foluke. Thank you. Thank you so much, all three of you. As I said, I really hope people took the time to jot down notes, because the jewels that were dropped in this conversation were just life-changing. Really appreciate you sharing your experiences with us. Today's discussion really reminds us that leadership is not accidental. It is navigated, negotiated, and sustained through what we've heard here: social capital, keeping your network warm, building trust and credibility, and truly going beyond mentorship into true sponsorship, whether you being sponsored or offering that to others. And no excuse in terms of ways to send the elevator back down. We've outlined so many ways to support others. So thank you to our incredible panelists for sharing not only success stories, but honest insight into how power, access, and longevity truly operates within African fintech. I hope everyone has been as inspired as I am and have learned as much as I did today, and that these lessons will help you through your career and beyond through your actual life journeys. Without further ado, I'll turn us to Dr. Conte for a presentation. And before I do that, actually, big shout out to Africa FinTech Network and the FinHer initiative for bringing us together. This was a truly, truly insightful conversation, and just looking forward to being part of more of these. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I sat down and listened fully. I want to say kudos, congratulations, very insightful, highly engaging. Send the elevator back down, bring all of them upwards, very engaging. I must say, on behalf of the African FinTech Network family, across the entirety of Africa and beyond, the board, management, to say kudos. Speakers, your insights, your experiences, your perspectives are really powerful. From Carol to Folake, of course, Alima, Miranda. Honestly, I've learned a lot. The truth is, at the network, these are some of the conversations that we need. When you talk about the friction points, some of the friction points in the development of Africa's fintech ecosystem is the continued critical role of women in the space, not only as managers, but as owners, as innovators, as mentors, as facilitators, bringing other women into the fold. So I would like to, on my own personal behalf, on behalf of management, to say thank you to our panel of speakers for such a wonderful engagement. It's been really, really an eye-opener for us. I had my pen, my notebook, Halima, so I've taken down notes, and be rest assured the insights will be shared not only internally, but as we continue our advocacy work. At this juncture, for those who don't know the network briefly, so the African FinTech Network, our work is advocacy. Advocacy to address the major challenges when it comes to the development of Africa's fintech ecosystem. So we work across the continent. We have presence in almost all of Africa, including, of course, where the speakers are coming from. Our operative words are two: cooperation and collaboration. The only way Africa the benefits of fintech or digital finance largely can be reaped fully by Africa is through cooperation. But we're all aware of the friction point, the challenges when it comes to fragmentation of regulations, when it comes to access to capital, the role of women in finance, etc., etc. So at this juncture, we have as with the FinHer, which is one of our interventions, working with one of our fellows, we have in the last couple of months also worked with one of our fellows, Paul, to put together a platform that sort of will try to bridge the gap, the capital gap, how African innovators, women innovators in particular, access funding, however little. So this afternoon, we are doing a soft launch. We call it a soft launch, to just talk you through that. The platform is up and available to match innovators, funders, So please open it up to your network once it is launched. Hopefully, the formal and the official or the big launch will happen in DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, in September. We are going to hold our annual FinTech Festival. So I want to pass it on to Paul. I know we're over time. Paul, in a few minutes, will talk us through the platform. So officially, on behalf of the African FinTech Network family, it's my pleasure to announce the soft launch of the African FinTech Founders Platform. Pass it on to you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Great, perfect. So greetings from North Africa. I'm sat here in Cairo, and I'll just echo Patrick's words. I found the last hour or so really fascinating. I've been making notes about sponsorship, building networks, building bridges, because this really resonates with what we've been working on over the last couple of months with Patrick and the team. So. For my sins, I'm a banker, so like you, Faluka, I come from a banking background for my sins. And over the years, fintech has grown and grown and grown, and obviously on the continent, it's super important. I've done some angel investments myself, but to find those companies is a little bit difficult. And then with conversations with Patrick, we started talking about, okay, how do the members of the association across the continent, how do they raise finance? What issues do they have? How do microfinance organizations get enough fuel to lend and to make loans? So we came up with the concept of, okay, let's develop a platform which can work under the auspices of AFN, leverage their network, and basically build a platform where if you are an early stage business or later stage, and you require funding in terms of predominantly equity, then you can register yourself on the platform. And I have relationships built over the last 20 years with the likes of EBRD now, who are active in a couple of countries, African Development Bank, British investment company in the UK. And there's lots of venture capitalists that are intrigued by Africa or active in Africa, but for them to cover 54 countries, it's very, very difficult. So we came up with the idea of, okay, let's be the platform in between. AFN already have this wonderful network. Let's reach out to their members and offer this service. So it's very simple. If a fintech is looking for finance, please just send us the deck. One of our team will have an introductory discussion with the company to find out their kind of stage, what their funding requirements are. We will prepare a very short investment note and then present it to the panel of VCs that we have in our database. So if I can quickly share my screen. I think you need to give me access to share my screen, yeah? Please. Okay.
Paul, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we've developed a very simple website. The domain is Africa FinTech Funders. Within the platform, we have a window for investors. So if you want our assistance with raising finance, very simple. You put your business name, email, whether you want equity, debt, or a combination. Debt is predominantly focused on, let's say, NBFI, so non-bank financial institutions that need money to on lend, to make micro loans, nano loans, or whatever. And then we've also included what we call matchmaking. So we think there's probably a lot of fintechs around the continent that perhaps need assistance on, I don't know, understanding regulatory frameworks. They need some help with their IT stack. Maybe they're curious about entering Egypt, for example, and they want to know what the regulations are. So we can matchmake amongst the members of AFN and also people that register on this platform to try to kind of upskill them, share best practices. As was mentioned earlier, we really want to be the kind of bridge, the bridge to data. There's a lot of information we have, a lot of information around the network that we want to bridge and share. So again, it's very simple. You just click on here and you basically tell us what your requirements are. For those that are interested in investing and perhaps don't have the time or perhaps access to identify companies that may need investment, then again, if you're an investor, you can just register here. And as we have propositions that are uploaded onto the platform, we will then start to share these with investors. So as you all know, early stage, seed stage, fintechs generally require less money, where angels can kind of step in, and angels can also help with the knowledge that they've gained over the years, and also help kind of mentor the business owners, which was also discussed earlier in today's presentation. So we are in the soft launch. The platform is very much an MVP, so we've tried to keep it as simple as possible. And as we see transactions and propositions and we speak to more people, we will further iterate on the platform and add other features. So we're up and running. We'll be very interested to speak to anybody that needs funding or needs matchmaking or needs some support in their fintech in preparing it for financing. We are here and very happy to be doing this with Patrick and his team. Super excited to be launching this. Thank you very much
Paul.
for your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Thank you. So that's the platform. It's up and running, effective today, and hopefully we'll look forward to receiving and reviewing your proposal. However little, 10K, 5K, please. Right? We need to mobilize the resources that the ecosystem needs to grow. At this juncture, I also pass it on to Omotola for some closing remarks. Omotola, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, please.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you've learned one thing or the other, and you're living enlightened, empowered, and inspired. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to thank you to Miranda, to Carol, to Alima, and to Fuluke. Thanks for leading our call, and thanks for joining us. And to all our members who joined us from everywhere in Africa and beyond, we say thank you. And we hope you answer. We'll call you again next time for a webinar or for a full-time seminar. So thank you, and we say have a wonderful day. And thanks to AFN for bringing about this special. Yes, so AFN too. I said thank you. See you and everyone.
Thank you to you too, Omotola, for championing this. Thank you so much.
I said thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you, Omotola. Thank you, all of you speakers, Halima, Carol, Foloke, and Miriam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. This was great. Congratulations. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.